Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we unpack the secrets hidden within corporate filings. And let me tell you, AbbVie Inc. has put on quite the financial show lately. Get ready for some serious debt talk before we dive in. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you love getting the real story behind the numbers. And hey, we've got a fantastic community over on Discord linked in the description below. Come join the conversation. This filing is a Form 8K, which means it is reporting some pretty big news that the public needs to know about right away. And for AbbVie, the big news is all about new debt, a whole lot of it. So, on the 24th of February 2026, AbbVie, a major player in the pharmaceutical world, announced they've entered into a big deal. It is called an underwriting agreement, which is basically a fancy way of saying they're borrowing a huge chunk of money by selling bonds. Think of it like this: instead of asking a bank for a loan, they're going to the public and saying, hey, lend us money and we'll pay you back with interest. And they're not just asking for a little bit of money. We're talking billions here. They announced the sale of several different types of senior notes, which are essentially loans to the company. They've got these senior floating rate notes due in 2028, meaning the interest rate can change. Then there are fixed rate notes maturing in 2028, 2031, 2033, 2036, 2056, and even out to 2066. That is a lot of debt spread out over many years. Let's break down some of the numbers. They're issuing $750 million in those floating rate notes. Then there is $1.5 billion of the 3.775% senior notes due in 2028. Add another $1.25 billion for the 4.125% notes due in 2031. Things keep stacking up with $1.25 billion for the 4.400% notes due in 2033. And $1.5 billion for the 4.750% notes due in 2036. They're not stopping there. They're also taking on $1.25 billion in 5.550% senior notes due in 2056 and a cool $500 million in 5.650% senior notes due in 2066. Now, about what they're getting for these notes, the price they're selling them at is very close to the face value, usually around 100% of the principal amount. For example, the 2028 notes are selling at 99.966% of their face value. This tells us that investors are generally willing to lend to AbbVie at these interest rates, which is a good sign for the company's creditworthiness. So, what is the grand total they're raising from all these loans? After cutting out fees and expenses, AbbVie expects to walk away with about $7.95 billion. That is a colossal amount of money. Now, a crucial question: what are they doing with all this cash? It is not like they're just putting it in the bank. Part of this money, specifically $2 billion, is earmarked to pay back some existing debt that is coming due soon. They'll also use it for general corporate purposes, which can be a catch, all for anything from investing in new research to, you guessed it, paying off even more debt. It sounds like they're doing some major financial housekeeping and restructuring. This underwriting agreement also includes all the standard legal stuff. AbbVie is making promises and commitments, and in return the underwriters have their own set of obligations and protections. It's a complex dance of legal promises and financial backing. Interestingly, some of the banks helping AbbVie sell these notes and their affiliates have a history of doing other kinds of business with AbbVie, like providing financial advice or other banking services. This is pretty common in the world of finance and typically doesn't raise major red flags, but it shows the close relationships between big companies and their financial partners. For anyone who wants to see the nitty-gritty of this deal, the full underwriting agreement is attached as Exhibit 1.1 to this filing. It's a dense document, but it spells out every detail of this massive borrowing operation. Alright, let's zoom out and talk strategy and what this all means. AbbVie is essentially refinancing a significant portion of its debt. They're taking on new debt at specific interest rates, some fixed, some floating, to pay off older obligations. This can be a smart move if they're getting better terms on the new debt, meaning lower interest rates or longer repayment periods. The fact that they're raising nearly $8 billion and explicitly mentioning using it to pay down existing debt suggests they're actively managing their balance sheet. This isn't necessarily a sign of distress, but rather a proactive financial management. However, it also means AbbVie's debt load is substantial and will continue to be a major factor in its financial health for years to come. Thanks to those long-term notes stretching out to 2066, we'll need to keep a close eye on their ability to service this debt, especially if interest rates rise significantly for those floating rate notes. Looking past the numbers, AbbVie is a pharmaceutical giant. They rely heavily on their blockbuster drugs like Humira and Skyrizi to generate revenue. This massive debt issuance could be funding R&D for new treatments, acquisitions of smaller biotech firms, or simply shoring up their finances as patents on older drugs expire. The pharmaceutical industry is incredibly competitive and requires constant innovation, which is expensive. So, what is our take on this? AbbVie is making a bold financial move, raising a huge amount of capital. The immediate impact is the management of their debt. Long term, it shows a company confident enough in its future to take on significant debt likely to fuel growth and innovation. But as always, with great debt comes great responsibility. We'll be watching to see how effectively they use these funds and how they manage their debt obligations in the coming years. Alright, that is our breakdown of AbbVie's latest filing and their enormous debt deal. What is your take on these numbers and what they signal for the company's future? Drop your thoughts in the comments if this analysis was valuable. Hitting that like button really helps, and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to check out the Discord in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.